That thinking will keep you poor. What was interesting is it showed up a belief system that most of us don't even know we have. It's a bias against the rich. Is that the kind of thinking that is handed down to us from generation to generation is invisible. Let's take a look at how this thinking is created, how it's generated, how it's handed down from generation to generation, and how it can stop you from achieving your goals. The point is to unravel it, get it out of our minds, excise it, be rid of it, be free of it, so that we can actually chase the goals. And what's interesting is that when my dad came along, my grandmother was looking for the best advice she could possibly give to him about work and wealth and how to make your way in the world. She went rummaging around in her mind and she came up with this gem, and it was the advice she gave to my dad. She said, "My son, get a trade. That way, you will never starve to death." Who here has heard some variation of that advice? Yeah? Okay? A lot of us have heard things down those lines. But listen to the second half of that sentence. Did she say, so that you can become all God intends you to be? Is it so that you can let your light shine, so that you can become wealthy, so that you can achieve goals? No, it's so that you never starve to death. The thinking comes from a place of desperation. And that's the thinking that's handed down generation to generation. And the weird part is, it's completely invisible to us. We hear this advice and we think it's right and we think it's normal. The point is just to say we have thinking that is invisible to us. We are trained to thought and we are culturalized to act in certain ways that no longer make sense in the modern economy. That thinking will keep you poor. So, what are some of the alternatives? I like to call that style of thinking the wheelbarrow way. It basically goes like this. It's like the parents get hold of their child, the young son, the young daughter, and they say, "My son, my daughter, you are young and strong. You must go out into the world and earn coins. Here's how you do it. Pick up your wheelbarrow, load it full of bricks, and for every hour that you push your wheelbarrow, you will get 1 coin. Now, you work your set number of hours every day. You push your wheelbarrow for your set number of hours, and a horrible thing starts to happen. You start to realize that you can't quite afford the car. You're not quite breaking even with the kids and their education and the debit orders and the bonds and so on. So what do? You go back to the thinking that was handed down to you, and you say, if I'm not getting enough coins, what do I have to do? I have to push a second wheelbarrow in the evenings to get more coins. That kind of thinking keeps families in generational cycles of poverty. If you take nothing else away from today, this is the one principle that is the most important. Do not tie your earning to the number of hours you work. You've got to separate those two. And I'll show you how today. But so long as we think a number of hours equals a number of coins, we are in financial trouble. Because as a human being, you only have so many hours in the day. The wealthy person's epiphany, the way of breaking out of this idea is this. Dump the bricks in your wheelbarrow. Get rid of them. Load your wheelbarrow up with gold. In other words, for every hour that you push that wheelbarrow, you need to raise the value of your work. Earn more coins per hour. Not work more hours in order to get more coins. Does that make sense? Okay. Of course, that raises some interesting questions. Now, how the heck do you do that? There are definitely ways of doing it. What are some of the things that our families teach us about work and about wealth and about how economies work? What are some of the things that they teach us? Work hard. There's nothing wrong with working hard. I believe in working hard. But the goal is actually to make money, not to work hard. And there is a very big difference there. The next thing is play it safe. Play it safe. Wealthy people take risks all the time. The middle classes and poor folks take no risks at all. In fact, I heard a phrase the other day that's just been resonating in my mind that says, the middle classes are paralyzed by doubt. They are secure to the point of paralysis. They do not take risks. Here's an obvious thing that has to be said. If you be like everyone else, you're gonna earn like everyone else. If you choose the safe route in life, you are choosing to earn less than you potentially could. Today I'd like to share with you 8 epiphanies, 8 ideas, 8 ways of overhauling your thinking that have to do with work and wealth. And my promise to you is that they are going to be uncomfortable. I ain't here to make people feel good, but this stuff is massively important. Epiphany number 1. Resenting the wealthy says more about us than it does about the wealthy. Looking back on that time period is the kind of language that my family used around the dinner table. How the other half live when they talk about rich people. Yeah. You know what it's like? It's like rich people are a different species. The way that I'd like you to look at the difference between where you are and wealth is I want you to look at it as a curve. Because if it is a curve, you can move along that curve. You can go from where you are now to your goals. But if you buy into that thinking that says rich people are just a different species, then instead of a curve, there's just a chasm. There's a hole. There is an absolute void between where you are and where you want to be. And if you don't believe that it's possible to move along that transition, you don't act in ways that start to move you there. The starting point in becoming a high net worth individual is the belief that it is possible. That a wealthy person is not a different species, they're just further along on a continuum. They have more education about what brings in money and how to achieve goals than what you currently have. And that's okay, because that represents hope. That means you can learn these things, you can do them. Number 2. There are 3 things that money is not. Money is not the root of all evil. Now think about what that belief would do. Money is the root of all evil. Okay, so if I chase it, there's something wrong with me. You can't hold that belief and become wealthy. The two do not work together. The first thing money is not, the root of all evil. The second thing money is not, embarrassing. Wealth simply makes you an amplified version of yourself. So what are you? If you're a horrible person, a rich version of you is going to be a horrible person who's able to do more. If you're a good person who likes to help others, a rich version of you will be an amplified version of that. Okay? Money is not embarrassing. And if we are embarrassed by money, it changes a number of things. Around the dinner table as a family, we won't talk about it. No. The middle classes like to talk about how hard we're working. But we never talk about how to earn money or how to lose money, all of the rules of money. You get into the home of wealthy people and that's what they talk to their children about because they think it's important. Money is not embarrassing. We must talk about it. And number 3, money is not finite. It is not finite. It is not a limited resource. If I take some over here, there's less for you. Money doesn't work that way. Work doesn't take money out of a system, it adds it to it. Bring your talent, earn money for yourself. The more you have, the more there is in totality. Number 3, represent yourself. There's a fantastic book. It's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about the difference between people who fail and succeed in anything. And he talks about how in wealthy families, they teach their children something very different to what is taught in middle class and poorer families. He says, you're taking your child to the dentist. The middle class family will teach the child that the dentist is God. He has studied for 8 years and he knows everything there is to know. You as the child must shut up, sit down, keep quiet, and even if it hurts, don't cry. Just wait for it to be over. Do whatever he tells you to do. Now in wealthy families, they approach the exact same situation completely differently. Driving to the dentist's office, they tell the child, the dentist is your friend. He has studied for 8 years so that he can serve you properly. How's that? Okay? The dentist is a resource that you can use. If you have any questions about your mouth, about your teeth, about anything that you want to know there, you must ask the dentist because it's his job to help you. Now take that kind of thinking. That's a simple example, going to the dentist. Take that kind of thinking and amplify it over the next 20 years. Which of those two kids is going to do well in life? You've got one who's taught to fear authority, shut up, keep your voice down, don't make waves, and the other one who's taught the world is there for you to utilize. It's all resources. You can use it to your own ends. Imagine the difference that that would make. Number 4, inspired ideas. This is one of my favorites. As you go about building your career, there are the things that you need to do on a day-to-day basis that slowly, gradually move you up that curve toward wealth. From time to time, we get that one inspired idea, that crazy thought, that thing that pops into our heads and we go, what if? And it's those ideas which in one go can add an extra zero to your income. You must have them, you must act on them. Number 5. Number 5 is an abstract idea. Leaving the ranks of the poor. And I thought to myself, just a mental exercise. If I was stripped of all of the stuff that I use every day, the suit, the car, the equipment, the bits and pieces, the toys, if I was stripped of all of that and just left with my knowledge, my wits, and my education, and put into this scenario, living in abject poverty, could I get back out? Could I get back out and back to my own life? What do you think? And could you? Yeah? Okay. Most of the people around this room are kind of saying yes. Now that's an interesting thought. Let's take that thought one step further. If I had to take a high net worth individual, someone who does drive the Ferrari, the Lamborghini, someone with their own private helicopter, with their own business, whatever the case might be, and I transplanted them into your life, do you think they would be able to get back out? If we say yes to that, then what we're saying is the gap between where you are and where that person is up here. Isn't that a horrifying thought? But at the same time, it represents hope because it means it can be done. The first thing I do is to physically leave and go somewhere else. Why? Because often in situations like that, the thinking is depressed. When you've had generations of poverty, it's almost impossible to believe it's possible. The thinking becomes depressed. There's a speaker in the States these days who has an interesting concept, and I believe it. He says, you are likely to be about as wealthy and about as successful as the average of the 5 people closest to you. Think about that for a second. Who are your closest 5? It's likely to be probably something like mom, dad, best friend, boss, teacher, something down those lines. Chances are it's those people. How wealthy are they? I'm sorry to ask the question, but apparently those stats bear out. Because what happens is we get involved in an ecosystem of thinking. And we all affect one another with our level of aspiration, our level of ideas, our thinking about work and wealth. And we all average each other out. There's something you can do about this one. You don't have to dump your mom. Okay? You don't have to dump the best friend, anything down those lines. What it is saying is we do need to associate with highly successful individuals. We need to expose ourselves to that kind of thinking. Unless we do, we are not going to lift ourselves up. But the thinking is out there. And quite often, people are quite willing to be mentors, friends, to share answers, share ideas. Sometimes they're not. It's always worth asking, worth the approach. You are likely to be about as wealthy or about as successful as the average of the 5 people closest to you. Is your state's thinking keeping you poor? Number 6, your positioning determines your pay scale. It is not the quality of your work that determines your income. Let's put this in very simple terms. If you're the celebrity of your industry, you're going to out-earn the non-celebrity of your industry, even if that guy's better at it than you. If an unknown speaker comes and stands in front of you, that person can put in an invoice with X number of zeros at the end of an hour of speaking. Richard Branson walks into the room and chats with you for 5 minutes. They will add 3 more zeros to his fee. It's not because he worked harder, and it's not because he's a better speaker. It's because he's Richard Branson. You need to be the icon, the expert, the celebrity, the big name in your industry. Now, here's where most people get it wrong. They say knowledge is everything. Knowledge is important, but you also have to bring personality. It's the people who bring their personality, their humanity, who become an icon in their industry. So it's not just about how good you are technically at what you do, it's about being the human being. Number 7, don't fixate on the bottom line. What most companies tend to do is when they think about their finances, they put 80% of their energy into saving what they have and 20% of their energy into earning more. We need to reverse that. Saving, of course, is important. What's more important is actually generating more income. In other words, you need to put 20% of your energy into saving your money and 80% of your energy into generating more money. That's the way we need to think. Saving is important, but it's not all important. Middle-class thinking says the most important thing to do is save. Sure, if you're going to live for 150 years, brilliant idea. Number 8. Randy Gage, the US speaker, recently wrote a book called Risky is the New Safe. The alternative applies. Safe is the new risky. We've been taught for generations that to play it safe, you get a job and don't make waves. I contend that that is the most dangerous thing that you can possibly do. Because you are taking all of your eggs and putting them in one basket. You are taking your life, your future, your career, your spouse, your children, your medical aids, your debit orders, your entire life, putting them into one basket and handing them to a person whose first concern is not your welfare. That sounds pretty dangerous to me. Now, let's look at this differently. People say being an entrepreneur is risky. Being your own boss is risky. Well, Forbes magazine says the only people who are wealthy are their own bosses. Okay? The next thing is, if you as an entrepreneur try 10 big, crazy, inspired ideas, and 8 of them fail, you got 2 of them working. Now you go out there and you try another 10 big, crazy, inspired ideas, and again, 8 of them fail. 2 of them work. Now you're up to 4 things that are bringing in income. Multiple streams of income, much, much safer. Risky is the new safe. Safe is the new risky. Your average high net worth individual has been bankrupt 3 times. How scary is the idea of going bankrupt to you? Yeah? To them, it's a matter of course. They've tried big, crazy things. They've tried building up businesses, and they've utterly, utterly failed. But to them, it's only part of the process. And they do something interesting, and I'd like to invite you to do this. They give themselves permission to fail. Do yourself a favor. Give yourself permission to fail. It's okay. It's only a bit of embarrassment. It's only a bit of skin off the knees. It's only picking yourself up and trying again. They think differently in California to what we think here. If a guy here started up a business and failed, banks won't touch him with a barge pole. In California, the banks and the financiers seek out the people who have tried and failed before, because they reckon that person has learned valuable lessons along the way. Give yourself permission to fail. Here's a revolutionary thought. Give other people permission to laugh at you and mock you for trying. Let that be okay. Say, I know my family's not going to understand. I know my friends are going to laugh at me. They're going to tell me this is crazy, you should play it safe and get a job. Give them permission to think that way. Give them permission to laugh at you. Give yourself permission to try and fail. You need the space, you need the leeway. Be kind to yourself. You are not separated from your goals by a number of years. You are separated from your goals by a number of actions, and that's completely different. Years. Years are an abstract concept. That's like saying 10, 20 years from now, I'll be wealthy. It's not up to years. It's up to you and your actions. That puts the ball back in your hand. That gives you control. That gives you the power. You are not separated from your goals by a number of years. You are separated from your goals by a number of actions. The word is, as a man thinks, so is he. So ladies and gentlemen, don't think poor.